The county recognized Desmond Meade Day, and we know what that means around here, and we're hoping to spread the word.
We believe that no state, especially the state of Florida, should ever force an American citizen to choose between putting food on their kid's table or voting.
There has to be justice, there has to be protest, we have to be heard. We have to move forward strategically. We have to move forward smart.
If you're a citizen in this country and first of all, you have the right to vote and you don't choose to exercise it, that's one thing. But if you're a citizen in this country and your right to vote is being hampered by legislation, that's a different thing altogether.
Florida had a felon disenfranchisement policies that's been on the books for over 150 years.
In Florida, prior to 2018, convicted felons were permanently disenfranchised from voting regardless of the type of felony they committed. The state began this process back in 1865. That was the year the 13th Amendment was passed, which abolished slavery and involuntary servitude except as punishment for crime. The following year, the Florida legislature passed a series of laws referred to as the Black Code. These were a series of laws that could lead to incarceration if one could not afford to post bond. The state would go on to continue various cat and mouse games with marginalized voters for decades, creating unique obstacles like felony convictions to cut out citizens of color from the voting booths. Fast forward 150 years to 2018, roughly 65% of Florida voters approved Amendment 4. This legislation was spearheaded by Desmond Meade, a returning citizen himself turned attorney. The new amendment restored the voting rights to over 1 million Florida citizens who had completed the terms of their felony criminal conviction. However, shortly after its passing, a provision to the amendment was signed into law that required these same citizens to pay off all outstanding debts associated with their felony cases. Essentially, if they couldn't pay it off, they still couldn't vote.
In August 2005, I was homeless in Miami. I found myself on 22nd Avenue by railroad tracks, standing next to them, waiting on the train to come so I can jump in front of it. That time I was homeless. I was hooked on drugs, crack cocaine, unemployed, and recently released from prison. And I wanted to end my life because I didn't see any light at the end of the tunnel. For some reason, that train didn't come that day. And so I ended up crossing those tracks and walked a couple blocks further, and I checked myself into substance abuse, a treatment facility.
Desmond would go on to enroll in the paralegal program at Miami-Dade College, where he graduated with 3 degrees. This opened the door for him to earn his PhD from the FIU College of Law, where he turned his focus to not only restoring his own right to vote, but the rights of millions of others.
While doing all this, I've discovered a passion for actually giving back. I discovered the purpose of my life was to do things to make my community a better place. We have set aside $500,000, that's $500,000, that we're going to be using to help citizens in Paramore satisfy their legal financial obligations so they could be able to participate in elections.
We are committed to being part of what we hope will be positive and sustainable change in Orlando and in our country.
You know, while some other leagues may want to promote singing national anthems, we have the NBA team that is actually saying, let's get some real work done, and that's encouraging.
As part of the return to the 2020 NBA season, right in the middle of the COVID-19 lockdowns and national protest movements, the NBA Players Association negotiated increases in community involvement in areas of social justice from the league and its owners. Part of the increased commitment from players and teams inside the NBA bubble in Orlando was Florida's own Amendment 4. Many players and teams chose to raise funds and pay the costs associated with reinstating those voting rights of Florida's returning citizens. This effort, along with a league-wide boycott of playoff games back in August, were a snapshot of a broader movement by the NBA this summer.
I don't think we're going to have a Game 5 here.
The largest, most widespread day of sports activism that our country has ever seen.
Miami's own Udonis Haslem was one of the faces of this renewed effort for the Miami Heat.
Just know we're going to figure it out together. I love this city. I love these people. And I'm standing with y'all on everything that y'all believe in and what we believe in, and we're gonna do it the right way.
On Sunday, you came forward during this press conference with Miami officials to publicly talk about what we've seen play out over the last few days. These protests, some of which have turned violent. What compelled you to speak, Udonis?
I mean, first and foremost for me, I see things from, two different sides, but also I think there's a huge difference between the people that are protesting and the people that are looting.
Well, it's an understatement to say that we've all evolved this year and this summer. And, March 11th, when the NBA changed and games were postponed, we all had to look at each other and look in the mirror and decide how we were going to handle and conduct our business.
One of the pledges that we took was we were going to look for ways in which we could support initiatives or organizations that were engaged in supporting the efforts of Black and brown people to exercise that constitutional right to vote. And that brought us to the Florida Rights Restoration Coalition and Desmond Meade.
If we want to be a great community, we must empower the weakest among us. We've had Heat players that have donated a significant amount of money. I would encourage, folks, are you registered? And if you're not, you should be registered.
Yep.
But if they're a registered voter, they carry a lot more weight than if they're just somebody that's homeless. I'll never forget that just a few years ago, I was homeless and strung out on drugs, ready to kill myself, right? And so there's so many other Desmonds that's out there, and when they see what the Magic is doing, when they see what the Heat is doing, that there are gonna be a lot of folks that's gonna be inspired.
For Desmond, the financial assist from teams like the Heat and Magic represent the final push in his journey to realize a deeper sense of equality within the voting booth.
We knew that the positions that we were going to take were not going to be pleasing to everybody. So we knew we were going to step right in the middle of that. And we made a conscious decision that we were going to do the things that we thought were right to do.
Voting is this space where it says that you are. I am. I count. I matter. And when you don't vote, it's like you're taking yourself away from humanity and say that my voice don't matter. It's not about whether or not you like one person better than the other person. It's about making sure that your voice is heard.